Really appreciate your time. We've got you on this week because it's Mental Health Week. But yeah, can you just give us a introduction about who you are and who the businesses that you work for, Happy Hub, and just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Happy Hub UK, we are a wellbeing and lifestyle company for construction. And the reason we were set up is, I've spoken to you before. I was in construction for 20 plus years, and I fell to, like most construction workers, I fell to the addictions, I fell to the emotional side of things, not being able to share problems, and to eventually my demise 4 or 5 years ago led me on a different path. So I was in construction for 20 years, and so I've been everything from the odd carrier to the bricklayer to the site manager to the director of the firm. So I get the whole element across the board. So I kind of originally started with my dad as his odd carrier, and then kind of from there progressed into a bricklayer, and then we kind of opened up a bigger company, and then progressed into doing multi-million-pound projects, developments, and stuff like that. And then 5 years ago, I ended up in rehab because I just,
Right.
I lost everything. And when I say everything, I mean my home, my business, my wife, my kids. And it was hard. And I really wish I'd kind of had the opportunity to kind of go back in time and look at where I went wrong. So
So just on that then, just with the build up then to obviously this happening, the business must have been growing quite aggressively, was it? It's quite a
yeah,
big shift.
it's like anything, when the going's good, you just assume it's always going to be good, and then you get bigger and bigger. And I've never been great. No one's ever really taught me about money or about kind of management or anything. Just like any construction worker, you kind of wing it as you go along, and you kind of just look and go, well, I'm sure if I do this, this will be okay. And like even I look back now, and I wish I'd kind of behaved to my staff how I wish like kind of people behave towards their staff now, because when the going's good, you've got 20 full-time guys working with you. If one of them don't work for the day, you don't really care that you don't phone him. You're just like, oh, just get somebody else in. And the problem was, I think, because I was progressively getting bigger, I think the issue was I was getting more stressed. But from the outside point of view, I was the director of the firm. So, what could bother me? I had no financial worries, and transparently, I didn't have any financial worries. I had a beautiful wife, beautiful children, a lovely home. So I had the world at my feet. But there was a lot going on behind the scenes. I was under a lot of pressure, started taking a lot of painkillers, and so eventually 5 years ago, I nearly died, and then ended up in rehab, and then come out. And then what you realise when you come out is all those companies that you think are going to be there, that you've supported for the last 10 years and like you've helped out, they go somewhere else, and that's it, right? And so that kind of led
And
me
was
to.
that you just so going on to the site? So obviously being a director of the business, then I guess that it's like any other business. It was just growth. Let's just keep growing. Let's keep
Yeah.
growing, and that's kind of but no really care. I say no real care for mental health. But at the time when you were a director, then did you have the thoughts for the other people that were working for you and their mental
No,
welfare?
Dan, if I'm honest,
No.
like I'm guilty of that. I really am, and I think it's like anything, because I was seen to, in my own head, I was like, stiff upper lip, just get on with it. It's fine. You'll just get over it. I just assumed everyone else should be like that, and that's I look back at my behaviour, and I was appalled by looking back now, it was appalling behaviour at times, because it's like anything. We used to segregate our operatives, right, and not in a horrible way, but we would always have operatives A, B, and C, and this is how so many companies still do it. So your operatives A are your plasterers, your bricklayers, your ground workers. You see where I'm going with this? Your dry liners, the dirty trade, as I call it. I was a bricklayer, so I was part of the operative A group. And then in the B, you have your painters, your electricians, and stuff like that. And then C, you have your plumbers, your heating engineers. And it's probably done based on finance and finance and kind of trade and profession. And therefore, it was all like operatives A. And I was one, so I always had that mentality that, if they go, they're easy to replace. Because at the time, I looked at them and thought, well, they're two a penny. Like, if a labourer don't turn up to site, I'll go and find another labourer just like that, from anywhere. Just phone a mate and say, does anyone want any work? And that's the biggest issue. I look back now and I think, well, why didn't they turn up to site? We had labourers now that I look back and think they had severe mental health problems, but I completely missed it because I was too busy trying to grow and make sure that I was keeping my supply chain kind of fed. And that's the issue, that it comes from the top all the way down to the bottom. And our site managers weren't really connected with our operatives. The operations weren't really connected to the site managers, and then even the bigger directors of the firms we were working for had no connection. They would turn up on site and wouldn't even really know who we were. So there's this massive disconnection between everyone, and that's one of the biggest
Um,
problems.
well, why we linked up was through a post, wasn't it? Bob Bennett's post
Yeah,
that he put
of
out
course.
about what's wrong with our industry, that people are taking their own life. That post must have really hit home for you when you read it,
It did
because you must
you
have
know
thought, "Wow, this is actually huge."
Well, so when I came out of rehab, I decided to, retrain and retrain in therapy, life coaching, just for myself, really. And I wanted to look at, after 25 years of therapy, why have I gone from this lovely life to a bed sit? And I probably looked at that as I never ate well, I never slept well, I never hydrated myself, I didn't exercise. So I thought, well, therapy really isn't cutting it. So I kind of tried to do all of those elements, and I kind of set the company up with another friend of mine who unfortunately killed himself. And when obviously Bob's post, it hit home, because it was like, it's still prevalent in this industry, whether we like it or not. It's probably getting worse, and it made me kind of reflect and want to reach out. And this is, where we are. And that's kind of why I looked at the whole element of a complete lifestyle change for Happy Hub, because that's what worked for me, and I think that's what's
Yeah.
fundamental.
Do you know what? It's interesting. I did say this to Bob, and it feels a bit. It's not nice feeling to feel like I sit on the the flashy end of the construction world. I sit in the networking events where, the handshakes, the posh wine, and I'm living the dream, and we're posting it on LinkedIn, and we're making, 10, 20 million pound deals with different people. And do you know what? As much as that's nice, it's the reality is so different, so different. And it's like what's actually happening on site to make them projects happen is we're completely oblivious to it. And it really's caught, I've been caught up in this quite a bit, because when Bob's post came out, I was like, wow, what's actually going on here? And then I spoke to you, and you referred to it as a pandemic, literally a pandemic. And now I'm thinking, how bad is this? And I spoke to you the other day, didn't I? I've got close people that are close to me, and even friends that are feeling it. Yet you brush it aside, thinking they'll get through it, and it's not. The reality isn't as straightforward as that. Can we go back a little bit to then the part that you went into rehab, then that part when you did break, and what happened? You don't have to kind of go into the full detail, but I see signs, a lot of signs, I think, in a lot of people, and you think it's sort of going to take something really small to make somebody snap. What was that for you, if you can
Yeah,
recall?
so the weeks leading up, I felt that the painkiller addiction was getting, it was a painkiller addiction, but fundamentally it was just a release of that kind of pressure of what they were doing. Is they were helping me work longer hours. They were helping me kind of release some of the pain. And so I hurt my knee at work, and I was under a lot of pressure. And then I kind of someone recommended take four tablets. This was like 2 or 3 years previous. And I realised when I took those, my back didn't hurt, my shoulder didn't hurt, and all of a sudden it just felt like this. Actually, this could make me work harder. And then me thinking I can work harder meant I could then higher profits, bigger jobs, and it like chasing the dream constantly. Look, I'm from a council estate in a rough area in Kent, and the dream was never there. But once I got there, the dream become there, and then it become there, and then it kind of I was chasing it, and then it just got out of hand because I noticed that I was buying tablets online, I was taking morphine, and I was taking tramadol, diazepam, and I was just literally numbing myself, and to eventually the point that I started choking. I got rushed to hospital, and they put cameras down my throat and said that you've eroded your whole stomach. And it was like, I'll be all right. I'm a builder. That's what we do. We just be all right. I'll go back to work in a couple of days. And just my head wasn't right. And I broke, and I just shut off to the world for a month. My wife and I decided that I needed some time out, and then eventually we separated. And it was just like, I probably need to get this right, because I went from not seeing my kids, like from being a loving dad, to not seeing my kids, and then it was just like, this has got to be done. I've got to do something about it, and I ended up in rehab, and that's kind of where I come out of rehab, and I thought, it's elitist. And I think I explained to you the other day that, you know, rehab's a lot of money every month, and I was in a position at that time that I could afford it. And when I come out, it was like, I need to do something about this, because the pandemic of this kind of suicide at work and mental health in the construction industry is really amongst the people that aren't going to be able to afford the rehab centres. It's amongst the normal people, the people that are fighting every day for their life and survival and paying their bills and for their kids and their family. And I thought, I've got to do something about this. And then when my friend died, I was like, it's a must. And then I've been banging the drum for 2 years about what needs to happen.
Yeah. So, and so have you ever got back into construction then? Or is your kind of career and line of work completely
So
changed?
I still do a bit in construction, not a lot. I do bits for people that I know, but only because a lot of my family work for me. So that was also an added pressure. So a lot of my family are in construction. So, you know, cousins, uncles, like my dad worked with us. So it's kind of like an element of, I also have to be mindful that, you know, when we kind of closed, that I was done a lot of other people, especially family, needed my help. I don't do it so much anymore. I've been banging this drum for the last 2 years, and you know what we're trying to do is get into construction industries and be on the other side, not your posh side, Dan, but the other side. With
Not my posh side, I know, mate. I'm proper making myself look an idiot. My posh side. But yeah, hopefully it made sense.
yeah, you know, it made perfect sense. But that's kind of really now for us. My main goal and my main ambition is to get into as many construction companies and bang this drum as I can. And kind of, I know where the challenges are. I know where the problem is. I know where the challenges are. I know what the solution. Well, I believe I know what the solutions can be. And it's just really finding those people that are willing to listen and realise that
Yeah,
actually, I'm not saying it's every director's fault, and it certainly isn't the director, but we have a shared responsibility, and we've got to start joining everyone back up again, because they're so far apart that fundamentally, all the while you've got somebody here and somebody there, you're never going to squeeze it. So you have to put people in between, and there's lots of operatives in between, but the chain's broken, and this is the issue that it's trying to. It's as a builder, right? You've got a stigma. Predominantly builders, especially category A, objective A, as I put them in, they are predominantly from council estates, predominantly from single parent homes. So they're not very good with money. They're not, you know, they seem to be doing the job that everyone always expects they're going to do. You know, if you haven't done well at school, because you're from a council estate, so even doing well at school, where I was from, was seen as a bit of an embarrassment. So you thought, I better, because I don't want to seem that kid. Like as a kid, I had to box. You know, I had to learn to kind of look after myself, because that's what you had to do where I was from. I actually enjoyed school. I actually enjoyed the creative element of school, but I couldn't do that because of the fact that my dad was a bricklayer. Like my uncles are plumbers. Like all of my family are in the building trade. So there's the pandemic. It starts from the core of your family. So already you're seen as somebody before you've even walked on site. You're seen as this lower end. Yeah, so when we're going in to companies now, we look at it and go, we understand that you feel that you've been given this, and that's your like kind of walk of life. But we want them to look around at the peripheral and see that actually there's a lot more. We're not saying that building is a bad job, because it's a brilliant job. But we just they have to give themselves a bit more self-worth. And here's the biggest problem. You know, you feel worthless, you don't look after
yeah,
yourself.
you're absolutely right. It's funny. We've been speaking to a team of people that are trying to get young people into construction. We've got our own issues on the fact that we can't even get people in. You know, we're on a huge decline. The industry itself isn't that appealing to a lot of people, and it just seems like it's the people that have really no vision of their own life that end up just getting pushed in that route of I'll become a
Cool.
brickie, I'll
Yeah.
become, because that, and it's getting away from actually bringing, well, it's getting away from that, and it's trying to get people in because it's a great career to have. But if you look at construction sites, as much as we bang the drum to say get into construction is great, the reality is so different. Just talk to me about pressures on site, Steve.
Pressure's on the
What
site.
that
So
what it's like.
well, they go from the bottom to the top again, right? So, the labourer first has pressure because he has to get there first and load out for the bricklayer, or they're the ones that have to do all the kind of dogs work. And then, like, the bricklayer has some pressure because he's getting pushed by the site manager to get this done ASAP because they're getting pushed by the people. And it just goes on and on. And the issue with the pressure is everybody feels it and nobody shares it. And this is the bit that we were really struggling with. Look, you know, because you've also got weather as an element, things turning up, people turning up. So you've got so many different elements on building sites that create pressure that are out of anybody's hands. So bricks not turning up isn't shouldn't be in the bricklayer's hands. But when they don't turn up and they turn up 2 days late, you're now 2 days behind, which means the site manager's getting in the ear. So you're now pushing yourself. So then you're working Saturdays. And the pressure doesn't just stop at work. It's when you go home and you tell your wife you've got to work Saturday and Sunday, or you tell your partner you've got to be, at work a little bit later. And then kind of you start, the pressure then kind of then pushes to your kids because you're not seeing them more. And it just gets a bit too much. And before you know it, you're not sharing that pressure with anyone. You're just taking it all on your own because, like anything, you just get on with it. You roll your sleeves up, and that's what we do as an industry. And just like Bob said, it's got to be shared and it's got to be spoken about more. That if you're struggling, ask for help. But mental health doesn't
Yeah,
seem to
yeah.
exist in the construction industry.
No, no, it doesn't. There's genuinely no place for it. Like there is, people will preach there is, but the reality is, you go to a site. Where's that zone? Where's that zone? And
And I've
trying to even
sat
get
in,
people to talk about it, it's not much
exactly.
anywhere.
I've sat in canteens. The canteen, Monday morning routine of a canteen is normally how many pints somebody's drunk, how many people someone's knocked out, how many birds. And
Yeah,
it's all camaraderie and it's all a load of rubbish. And you know this, right? And what you want to say is everything okay? But you all kind of just get mixed up in it. Or like me, I just sat on the peripheral and just put my head down and listened. And I was struggling, Dan. I was really struggling. But who was I? Who was I to go to? Because if I go to my superior, like one of the directors of the firm or one of the site managers, and say, "Look, I'm struggling. I need a bit of time off." Guess what would happen? They'd just replace me. I'm like a conveyor belt of people, and that's what the construction industry is. A labourer don't turn up for 2 days, he gets replaced by another labourer, and then you don't see him, he gets replaced again, and this just goes on and on and on. And because actually, fundamentally, I heard a thing the other day from a company that we do some work with. They had to replace their finance manager, and it cost them £12,000 to replace their finance manager. And I thought, it never cost any money to replace a labourer, a bricklayer, a plumber, an electrician, because you just phone someone else up and someone else comes in. But
yeah,
in other industries, you have to go through the recruitment process, CVs. You find out if they're okay, and then you kind of hire them. But that's not how the construction industry is. So it's just like we're two a penny.
no. Do you think with do you think with tendering processes, especially to win a lot of jobs,
Yeah,
price is usually the biggest driver on whether somebody wins a job. And over the years, we've started to look at social elements, so whether it's social value, helping the community, or whether it's through biodiversity, putting green, etc., into your projects. Do you think there should be a part in there that actually has mental welfare, which is the reason I ask this question is Bob says it's got worse, which means as we've got worse, we've become jobs have got cheaper, and people are saying we can do them even quicker. But actually, Bob was saying back in the day, you used to be able to finish on like a Thursday morning. You could be finished, and then you'd have a
yeah.
couple of days
Rather
off,
not.
still paid,
Yeah,
relax with your family, and it just how much better of a world and industry would we have if that was it, where we were, look, I need to build in an extra 3 weeks on the job for mental welfare. That might be a day where we're not. And the thing is, the guys are scared to not come to work because they won't get paid if they're on day
and
rate. So day rate's its own argument on its own. Actually, that the whole thing is just crazy. But day rate, creates that. So, going to the question then is, would you implement something into tender processes that could
Yeah,
potentially
I
help?
think
You think
it's
make
one of
them
these things that it's like good practice. But so if you look at what a lot of companies have got, they've got like considerate construction. Is it considerate constructors? They've got that kind of,
yeah,
and what else was there? There was considerate constructors. There's a few other elements that they put in place, and like mental health first aiders, and they're all like box ticking exercises, which is great that they're actually looking at those things. But I think actually, as good practice, it is every month they should finish one day where they finish half a day, but they still get paid for a full day because it gives them an incentive to kind of look at stuff like that. Because Bob's right, back in the day, job and knock was great because you go, actually, I could be at home. But obviously, back then, it was like I go to the pub. But the issue you have is, like I said, about the pressures of going home to family, is everyone now, if they have half a day, they're only getting paid for half a day. If they have a day off. So even if you're not feeling right in your head or not feeling well, you're still going to work. And that's where mistakes happen. That's not just mistakes at work, that's where accidents happen. And it really, I think it's good practice to have companies like us that go in and talk about well-being and talk about being able to share about amongst your peers and amongst your friends and amongst your colleagues because it's important and actually get rid of this stigma that is on so many sites across the country that it has to be there because fundamentally mental health exists in every company. Every company has a policy set up for that, and that's what we're finding. A lot of bigger companies that are not construction that we go into, they have like so. A lot of construction companies have the telephone system. Now, I'm going to tell you now, and I've spoken to numerous companies. How many people use that telephone system? None. Because why would you go to a telephone that's in the office and go and make a call to the Samaritans or a counsellor? Because you wouldn't. Because it's just not the dumb thing. And this is kind of why we created Happy Hub. Look, I looked at a company that I could do it discreetly. I was relatable, and they could look at an access of a complete lifestyle change because it's not just a mental health problem; it's a lifestyle problem. You know, how many boys do you see drinking Red Bull, Monster on? And they, I'm not slagging those drinks off, but they're just constantly drinking sugar all day, and they're getting highs and lows. Then they go into the pub, and then and I'm gonna say, drugs is rife in building trades. Addiction is rife in building because these these young lads or anybody in the building trade or construction trade, they're not socially and emotionally inept enough to understand what they're doing is wrong. It's just we're full of sheep. Look, because a lot of us haven't grown up with parental kind of guidance, so we go to work for that, and then we see the person in front of us getting stressed, but go into the pub and smoking and drinking. So we just follow because that's all we know. We look for the role
yeah.
model at the time because that's our safe place, and unfortunately, it's not a safe place anymore.
When you had your moment and you went into rehab, where was your support? Where was there any
No,
at
so
the
that's
time
so
when you?
I come out of rehab, and the first thing I did was I described that. So I do a lot of speaking, keynote speaking. I described pre-rehab. I was like a lion in the wild. I was like the king of the jungle. I had money. I done what I want. I had a firm. I had nice cars, motorbikes, everything I wanted. And then I went from the wild to the zoo, where I was fed, watered, looked after, and then I got put back in the wild again. And this time I knew what it felt like to feel safe and secure, probably for the first time in my life. And that's where I really, really, my head just went because I was like, I don't know what to do because I've lost the ability to be the lion anymore in the wild because I've lost my home. I'm no longer with my wife, and I just completely lost my head. And that's when I just decided that actually my safe space was, and my safe place was eating healthier, like kind of hydrating more, sleeping better. So I contacted a personal trainer, a nutritionist, a sleep expert, and then I decided to go back and learn how to become, like, do therapy, do life coaching, just mainly for myself, and go, well, I'll do something because what I've done for years isn't working, and I don't really particularly want to be like this forever. And that's kind of where
Yeah,
I
yeah.
found my safe space to be able to look at every element of a lifestyle.
No, it looks good. So I looked at the website. I've looked at the work. It's extreme. It's very good. I think it's very good because it doesn't just focus on mind. It's wellness, and fitness, even fitness. I think that was really good. When you said you came out and there wasn't a lot of help there. You obviously started to work out in your head what people could benefit from doing, and it was full lifestyle changes, wasn't
Yeah, and
it?
that's
So
it,
how
isn't
did
it?
you start with this? Yeah, what was the play here? Because you must have come out and thought, I'm going to go back to work. Were you kind of um, asked by others saying, "Oh, when are you coming back?" And
Yeah, so I
was your
turned
mind
back up
already
on
made up?
site. Yeah, so I come out of rehab and I turned back up on site probably a, a week or two later. And all of a sudden, the two jobs that I thought we had lined up, one had been given to someone else. And I was like, okay, I accept that. Maybe, maybe they just had to get that one done. And I very quickly realised that I wasn't just a commodity. I wasn't as important as I felt I was pre-rehab because these companies loved me when everything was good and we could supply them with like lots of labour and supply them with lots of work. But when the going wasn't that good, they didn't seem to, like I said, a conveyor belt, and it was just like, well, actually, this isn't going to work. And then I kind of put myself into a bit of a hole for a while, and I think I said before I was laying in bed. I kind of felt I was getting into a bit of a depressive state, and I wasn't seeing my kids. And my young daughter phoned me up and just said, "Whatever you do, Dad, don't give up on us." It just, it was like a light that I needed to be able to go, because you do have thoughts that are completely negative, and you have thoughts of, "Is this it?" Like, and they're hard, and suicidal thoughts are not easy for anyone. And at the time, you feel like, because I've predominantly grown up around construction workers, so my friends wouldn't really understand, and that's no fault of their own. So I didn't really have friends to talk to because they were all just builders like me. So, and the camaraderie suggests that if I went with a problem, I'd soon have the Mickey taken out of me. And it's like, so where do you go? And I just kind of woke up that day and I was like, I need to probably start eating properly. So I just contacted a nutritionist and said, can you just help me out a little bit? And I hadn't been sleeping for weeks. So I contacted a sleep expert, and that kind of where I started the whole process of, and I contacted my friend Dom, who was an alcoholic. And I said, look, if we go on this journey together, and maybe there's an idea in here. And we were never looking at a business idea at first. We were just trying to get in sobriety and be clean and be happy, and we kind of started the journey together, and we started eating better, exercising more, because my misconception of exercise was always, well, I'm too tired, I go to work, I'm too tired to exercise. I now realize that if I exercise, I have more energy, which is something I never thought would happen. Even eating well, like a
Yeah,
bacon roll every morning was what I had, or a fire, because that's what builders do. Like, and so you fall into that routine. And then we kind of went on that journey together. And then when Dom killed himself, I was a bit like, this is really now, this has now got to be something that I bang on enough, because if I don't, then we'll
yeah,
have another situation like this again. And that's when I realised that actually changing my whole lifestyle was key. But, and I always think now that I am a builder from a council estate. I am also from a family of builders, and I've managed to do this because of everything I've always believed. My kind of unbiased kind of beliefs have now kind of been broken. So my subconscious beliefs of always assuming that every builder should be tough, every builder should never have mental health problems. That's like, so even yesterday, like I went to a funeral of a family member yesterday. All my family are there, and I asked them all if they're okay, all builders, and the first thing they all said to me, and they all said exactly the same phrase: "Well, of course I am, because you have to be." And I'm like, well, you don't have to be. Well, you do. You just get on with it. And the sad part is, even my own daughter said, Daddy's crying. Daddy never cries. So they don't even associate any tears ever coming from my face. And it's like,
yeah,
that hurts a little bit, because that goes to show for years they've
yeah.
just looked at me as an alpha man and a macho man. And it's kind of,
Yeah,
that's where
and
we
I
were at.
think that's the challenge: trying to get people to speak. And I think we've got some amazing charities out there and organisations, but a lot of them are there. Like I think I said this the other day, at the wrong stage. They're there when it's happened to their support. What you're offering, I guess, is an opportunity to change the entire lifestyle to even stop you getting to that point.
Yeah,
And that's where
absolutely.
you're quite unique in that respect.
Well, so what's
You
unique?
need them on both sides, and
Well, I think the whole unique element is the fact that, one, I've been there, and I've been at every level of the construction. Two, I genuinely, genuinely care. because I have a vested interest. And three, I don't want it to be elitist anymore. I'm fed up with good mental health practice being such a because let me tell you now, people at the top of that food chain, if they have a problem, they'll get it sorted. And it just, I just wanted to create something that I could look at and go, I'm really proud of this because I genuinely think this will save somebody's life. So we got the app, and on that app, so we look at we look at mindfulness, we look at sleep, we look at nutrition, we look at fitness. And one thing we look at a lot, which in the building trade is so prevalent, money management. Because these guys are earning okay and relatively good money. On a Friday, they get paid. On a Wednesday, they got no money because nobody's taught them how to manage a budget. And a lot of them are single parents, so we've got a parental expert on there that gives talks because I'm trying to cover all bases. And I think for us, what I try to do is I thought if I bang the drum enough and go into industries and say, look, I pretty much subsidise this app. Like I've spent all my money trying to create it because I want to give it back to the community and I want to give it back to my people. And it's like, I know it sounds very dramatic, but for me, I go into companies and say, you can have it for £1.50 a day per person. And that just covers what it's worth or what it costs to use. And the reason I want to do that is because I can then look at you when you're at home, because the camaraderie at work is great, but it's when you get in your van and you drive home and you go, I don't want to go home today. And I felt that enough. I don't want to go home. I feel tired. I don't feel right. I don't feel right mentally. I don't feel right physically. And you get home and that's where the real kind of problems start, because the pressures at home are still there of you're working too late. You've missed your daughter's nativity play. And this is what I've always said to people now, make sure you always do everything you can with your children and everything you can with your family and loved ones and friends. Don't put work first. And for us, having the app allows us to be able to see the red flags for the company before the companies see them. Because sometimes for these companies, they care when it's too late. Because before that, they don't care. It's like anything. They go, yeah, good practice. Something happens. Oh, we better put something in place for the next 3 or 4 weeks so we're seen to do the right thing. And then 4 or 5 weeks later, it's like we're back to normal again. And it's just, for me, the reason the app was so important is because I've got you 24/7 and you've got me 24/7. And I can relate. Any problem you come with me, I've been an addict. I've been a bricklayer. I've had family troubles. I've had money problems. I've seen every kind of level of pressure, but also didn't exercise, didn't sleep, didn't eat well, and never certainly practice any mindfulness. So for really now, to have me at the other end and to have our team of guys and our professionals that all work with behind us, I think it's good practice. And this isn't me kind of promoting my company. Yeah. This is me saying this is the solution, because they're never going to share at work. And the whole idea is we then put everyone in a community on the app, and then you can start sharing, and it becomes part of, it's creating good habits. So really what rehab gave me, the only things rehab gave me, and I'll be transparent, rehab cost me 10 grand for 1 month. And what it gave me was structure, routine, accountability. And I give everyone that. If I was to ask you, Dan, if you could do something for me, like drink your water, you'd probably do it if I asked if you could do it. But to yourself, you probably wouldn't. Because in the industry, there's so much lack of self-worth. And that's from the core. That's from childhood. That's from, they're probably doing a job that they don't particularly feel valued in, so they don't feel valued themselves. And really, like, transparently, we make money by going into companies and doing workshops and stuff like that. And that's, for us, that's important, because we go in and we're relatable and we do everything tangible. So it's all with props, Lego, Play-Doh, balloons, because builders are not going to sit there and watch a PowerPoint presentation. I've been in so many site kind of inductions where you shut off after 5 minutes because you're just like, whatever, I've done this so many years, I know exactly what to do. But we go in there and we create an element of fun. But again, people come in and they go, am I missing a day? So the first thing we're up against that, am I getting paid for this? Are the company paying for this? So they did.
That's exactly right.
And so I'm going to use an example. We went into a company called LFS, London Fire Solutions, and they are a big fire manufacturing company, and they install and make doors, fire doors. And I managed randomly to get hold of the PA, who then dragged me to the MD's office, and the MD was just like me. He's a former builder. He sat there with his alpha male attitude on his big phone of like, no, don't get it, don't get it, don't need it, don't need it. And I just said, just hear me out. And I went in there once, and then I've now been in there for over a year now, and I go in there every week. And he wrote a lovely post about me on LinkedIn the other day that he says it's the best thing his company's ever done, and it's purely because he now looks after his staff. Because he looks at this, right, and I never looked at it this way, that if he's making 15% profit on every job, if he just drops that to 13% profit, he can afford to do this for his staff. And eventually our 13% profit goes up to 20% because the staff are happier and they're more productive and less mistakes happen. And it's not many companies that want to look at it like that. And he's like, I'm going to drop to achieve more. And now, like, we're familiar with that company, and we go in for one-on-ones, and we do workshops every quarter, and that's really, I think, what the solution has to be. It has to be, it has to be discreet to start with, because there is no builder that's going to sit in a room until I manage to get them and say how they feel, and that's the problem.
Yeah. So is it? I guess there's a really strong mission here then for you as a business. This isn't just about helping businesses when they feel like it. You've got a real push here to get businesses to get involved, haven't you? Because they don't know what they don't know what they don't know. They
Yeah,
can't see it.
so true.
So
Yeah,
it's about linking into. So if there's one message, even obviously it's not like you say, you come on here and it's not selling the business. But to be honest, Steve, if there's anything anybody can take from listening to this, if you are a construction company, just to reach out even for a chat to see
yeah.
how you could
I'm happy to
potentially
talk to
support their
anyone.
business.
And so the taglines that we use are prevention before rehabilitation. Because if you can prevent it before it happens, and this is like you just said, that when they don't know what they don't know, because of the fact that actually, until it happens, you don't really, until my friend died, I was oblivious to everything. And I was oblivious to actually, these people have feelings as well. And I get told so many times, well, what is in it for me? What's in it for me constantly? For companies, I bang on the door, and it's just like, well, a happier, healthier workforce. And it's like, yeah, but for me, what's in it for me? And I always think, well, actually, being able to say that actually someone at work got home to their kids today and they didn't do the stupid thing by throwing themselves off something or taking their own life is much better than any profit that you can kind of take away from that. And
Yeah,
and that's the
yeah,
message, right? Well, you've got to kind of say that let's get it sorted before it's too late again and again and again and again, because
yeah,
it's becoming so ridiculously kind of prevalent now that this is worldwide. This isn't just the UK. The construction industry worldwide has more suicides than any other industry. Now, you would never say that construction industry has a higher pressure than surgeons or bankers or traders or those kind of big industries where the pressures are worth millions of pounds. But we are, as an industry, socially and emotionally so inept that we're just so backwards and behind the time. Because you can't tell me that, how many, and again, I'm going to go back to the point of, I think it's 1 in 10 people are homosexual, right? How many homosexuals do you know on a construction site that have got the ability to be able to be who they want to be? And this is the
yeah,
sad thing. You
no,
all have to
no,
be some.
no,
You don't, do you, right? Because it's that you
no,
have to put on a brave face. And imposter syndrome comes out because everyone's all right because I'm a geezer, innit? I have a lot of one-on-one clients, and obviously I will never say their names, but I will tell you now, majority are scaffolders and roofers. But if I turned up on site with these said scaffolders and roofers, you would never in a million years think that they had childhood trauma, that they would have home life worries, that they have financial worries. Because that's just not seen to be the right thing on the site. But yet when they
yeah,
come to me and I've opened them up because they can relate to me, I'm like, why can't you share this at work? Well, how can we share this at work without having someone take the mickey out of us?
yeah,
And it's about giving people safe spaces and creating that kind of safe environment where it's all right to not be all right. And it's okay to not be okay. And it's because how many people do you know on construction in like kind of the lower end that ever go to work and say, do you know what? I really love my wife and children. I really love my wife and children, but I never would have said that because that would have been like weak. Like it's like I'm a Jackman lad. I don't say things like that. But actually, that's probably
Yeah,
what lost me,
yeah.
my wife and children, because you act like it at work, you don't act like it at home, and that's
It's
the
just
issue.
that it's just a culture. When I spoke to Bob about this, if you look at when you use main contractor sites, we don't have to name any main contractors because that's not what we're doing. But main contractor sites, just generally hostile places to go. You pull up in your car, you walk in, and it'll be, where the F have you been?
Yeah,
Effing sign in, F all this, giving it the big uns, and they just make the whole process. This isn't all of them, by the way, so this isn't about calling, but that I would say a lot of them are. Everyone is so stressed. The site manager, there's no guidance. There's no everything's just a constant like get to where you get to your post as quick as you can and crack on with putting them plasterboards up. And even inductions, Steve, when you walk in for an induction, they look at you like I've felt this big being sat in a site cabin before, and all I've felt is, and I worked in refurb. I worked in refurb for most of my life, and the refurb world allows me to go to schools, go to nice places where there's no main contractors, and I was so much more happier. And yet I've got a best friend who's is lift engineer, and he goes to main sites all the time, and he's like, oh. And you're right, the culture of them just makes you. That's what I said to Bob. If I feel like that, I'm generally a dead open person. I get on with
yeah.
everybody. I always have like a chat. So if I feel like that, imagine what everyone else feels like when you go. You just don't want to be there, or you're there to just get a job done. And it's such a bad culture, isn't it? It really
It's an
is.
intimidating
And
culture. If you're not, you have to
yes,
create an imposter syndrome because you have to be able to say, "I'm not frightened of this culture." Like I've had site managers, threaten to throw us off site, threaten to beat us up, threatened because we've not got something done in time, and it's just like, where is this culture
yeah,
coming from? Is that coming from the top, or is because I find on a lot of sites there's a lot of egos, and the egos can't be broken all the while this carries on, and the egos only ever get broken when something major happens, and it's like, oh, really, we need to do something about this now. And by that point, it's too late. But then 2 or 3 weeks later, the ego's back, and it's just like there's nobody's accountable for anybody else, because the issue you have on a lot of
yeah,
sites is most contractors are subcontractors. So therefore, it's not my problem because they don't directly work for me. Now, you could be a subcontractor for a company for 20 years. So you're not a direct employee. So therefore, I get that barrier every time I go to a site. It's like, well, these guys don't actually work for me. Well, they're working for you on this site. Yeah, but they don't. They're subcontractors. They're subbies. So the subby is on his own, right? So he's got no legal right to, if he gets sacked because he forgot his tools one day or something hasn't turned up or he's made a mistake. Got no legal rights, so he then has to go to the next job. So he's got no rights as such because that's the way that the industry gets around it. Everybody just works for themselves,
yeah,
and this
yeah.
is the issue.
They
And
absolutely do.
but how do you break that? And
Yeah, they absolutely do.
you break it by a site agent or a director of one of these big firms actually going, subbies or not, I care. And subbies or not, they're working for me and they're representing me as my firm. And having the banner of considerate constructors isn't enough. How many site inductions have I been on where you don't even do a site induction? If you haven't got time, it's just like, just sign and say you've done it because we haven't got time. Even health and safety, right? Health and safety only suits a site when it suits the site. So health and safety, we're going to do these talks about health and safety, working at heights. I remember I had all this talk, and about 3 weeks later, they dropped all like the internal scaffolding and everything like that. And then there was a little bit of brickwork to do up in one of the loft spaces where they created a massive ladder. I was walking across a beam and someone was holding my legs. I'm thinking, if I fall, I'm going to die. But I had to do it because if I didn't do it, they'd just get someone else to do it. So where's health and safety gone? It goes out the window when they want it to go out the
Yeah,
window. And I'm not, again, like you said, not saying every site, but a predominant amount of sites care about getting the job done, making a maximum profit, and then just moving on. And it's what
yeah,
about the people? Because
yeah,
then you never see these guys again. And it's like, well, we had a gang of bricklayers this week there, and we had a gang this week, and we'll never see them other ones again. We don't care what happens to them after they've left here. And it's just, like I said, conveyor belt after conveyor belt.
it is. It's such a big thing, and this is the thing: the big companies win jobs. Yet, if it's £100 million development, chances are only 10% of that is actually of the company that won the job, with the other
Yeah,
90% of just subbies. So you're absolutely right. Their culture is broken from everybody that comes into the business. Nobody knows how they should act, how they should be, what the values are. None of that. And this is the problem with the industry. It's that it can be done like that. It can be won on a grand scale,
yeah,
yet it's not
absolutely.
actually them doing the work. It's
Yeah,
crazy, isn't it? Yet that's just the nature of how we've got to this point. There is a lot to fix on it, but going just onto Happy Hub, I definitely want to bring this up. It's new. You say what, 2 years old that you've been
yeah,
going? Is
two
that
years
right?
old. Yeah, so yeah, about
2 years.
about just coming up to 2 years old.
What's the what's the what's the vision for it in your head? How can you
So the
see this
vision
working,
for
and what
Happy
would you
Hub.
like to see the industry
So
doing?
I'll just clarify. We are a Happy Hub UK, and I'll tell you why very briefly. We were originally Happy Hub. Happy Hub UK had to be developed after I had a little bit of an argument with the original Happy Hub, who are a Bangladesh cashback system that said we'd stolen their name. So we had
Right,
to then put UK at the end of it,
right.
so nobody got confused. If you were looking
Okay,
for a
okay.
coupon in Bangladesh, that you were coming to us. So the vision
Brilliant.
behind it is to break this construction industry. Originally, it was a vision to try and help as many as we can. I know the construction industry more than most. I know the pressures, I know the stresses, and we've always wanted construction industry. The first clients we went into, and I will never name names, were big building firms, big building firms. I mean, the big ones that you see nationally, and we didn't get anywhere. And I was just like, well, maybe we have to look at a bit of a wider kind of spectrum. But no, the vision is to get into construction industry, to get the app onto as many phones as I can, whether it be a labourer's phone or the director of the company's phone, to show them that behind that app we can look at every bit of data. We're looking at why we want to look at this is because Headspace and Calm are brilliant apps, and if anyone can download them, they are brilliant kind of commodities, but they've not got anyone real behind there. And what we need as a construction industry at this moment in time is somebody there, somebody that can then reply and somebody can be there. So and that's the vision, is someone to be able to give these workers in construction industries. And so we do work with schools and apprenticeship schemes so we can get them early. So we can get them at 16 when they're just working out if they want to do an internship or an apprenticeship, that we can get these people that have got no kind of idea of what they want to do in life and feel lost. We can get them there before they get into the building site so they can spread the word for us. So that's really our main goal, is to go into as many construction industries as we can, or companies as we can, tell them about the app, do some workshops for them, explain to the people on site that we're relatable because of who we are, and really kind of look after everybody in our own pocket. We want to be everybody's accountability buddy. So the reason like Batman
Yeah,
and Robin are so prevalent is because when I was going through it all, my sister said to me, "You can't save the world one person at a time." And I said, even Batman needed Robin. And for us, it's not fighting your battle alone. We don't want to be the star of your
yeah,
film. We want to be you want to be your Robin. We want to be able to look and go, you know what? Everybody needs help. If Batman needed help, then don't feel ashamed to ask for help. Because for us, it's just being an accountability buddy in your pocket. And if you need to reach out, we're going to be there. And we're going to look and go, why are you not eating right this week? Why are you not sleeping well? Is everything okay? And then we got that opportunity
yeah,
to give the directors of these firms the opportunity to do the right thing and say, look, this week
yeah,
Dan isn't feeling great. Do you want us to do a bit of extra work with him? And the moral compass has got to be
yeah.
there somewhere. And that's, no, I'm done a
It
bang the drum
does,
with
and I think you're right in changing it from the bottom. You are right. Yeah, 100%.
and
Because
and I
the
think
thing is, if you're only gonna convert so many people that are already, it's going to be hard to convert the people that don't believe in it. But it's getting the ones right in the beginning, the ones that are just getting into it, to say, look, here's your companion. It's there for you, and just say. I think it's just explaining that the construction industry is tough as well. It's not all happy. It's got some
yeah,
tough times in it, and having this here helps you just get through it. But I think it's a great vision, mate. I'm all about making change and pushing things and prodding things and seeing if we can make things better.
Well, it's
So
like
I'll
anything.
be a huge advocate.
If if they love the life they have, then don't change. If you don't love the life you have and you don't do anything about it, nothing changes. And this is kind of what we say to everyone. Oh, you'll be amazed the amount of guys that have said, "I don't get it. I'm not interested in it," until we start to talk. And then when we start to talk at a workshop, because I do a Q&A at the very beginning. I don't say Q&A happens at the end of this speech. It happens at the very beginning. If anything resonates when I start talking, you have to put your hand up. And at the beginning, everyone's a bit like, no, no. And then as soon as I start talking about addictions, mental health, and like lifestyle, people then start to, like this person I know done this, or this person, or I've suffered this. And then before you know it, the room opens. And what we always allow for 40 minutes to do my talk about why we do it, then takes 2 hours, because people then start to buy into it. And this is the biggest problem with construction industry. You have to be relatable, because if you're not, you're shut off. A man comes onto a construction site with a suit on, I tell you what, he will be shut off like that, because it'll be like, you don't know. A man turns up in a suit, got a degree, wants to be the site manager. Every single construction worker on that site will go, well, you've never been on a tool, so you don't know what it feels like. You don't know what it feels like to, be working in the rain into horrible, boggy, muddy conditions to lay bricks. You're telling me you need. As soon as you get someone like me that turns up and goes, I know exactly what that feels like. I know exactly what the stresses and the pressures feel like. They open up a bit more, and I think that's why it's a vision that I can achieve, because I've been there, I've done it, and I want to bang this drum. I don't. If I'm brutally honest with myself, I don't. This isn't about money. This is nothing to do with money at all. This is about trying to solve the grand age problem of the construction industry. And I think I've created something that will benefit massively. And I just want to do the right thing.
100%. Yeah,
I just
100%. I think
sure
it looks like it.
Thank you, mate. I really do. I do appreciate that. And I will never forget how I felt when I lowered my friend's coffin into the ground and his little boy tugged my shirt and said, "Where's my daddy going?" It broke me. It absolutely broke me. Yeah. And it made me go, this can't happen anymore, because it happens too often.
Yeah.
And it's just about getting it right and going, will somebody listen? Because these are people. They're fundamental. They're dads, their brothers, their sons, their daughters, their husbands, their wives. And because it's not just men. Like, there's women on construction sites too. And it really is just somebody has to listen to them. Just because we're from here, it doesn't mean we can't get heard. And that's really the vision.
Yeah. Steve, where can people get hold of you? What's the best route to get hold of you?
So obviously LinkedIn. Our website is www.happyhubuk.com. My number's on there. When you phone our number, you will always be linked to. There's 6 of us behind the doors at the moment that work full time. You will always get one of us. But we offer free introductory workshops or calls, so you can understand really what we do, because we also understand that it might not be for everyone. But once we get through that door, we'd like to think that actually they'll understand why we do what we do. And the team behind me are very much under the same ethos as me. Let's do the right thing first. And, so you can get hold of us. Through LinkedIn is always a good one. I'm a builder, Dan, so I don't really understand LinkedIn and social media, but I'm getting there with the help of you, and I'm getting there with the help of some others. Let's spread the word as quick as we can.
No, absolutely. Lovely. But Steve, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you, Dan.
And
I really appreciate it.